What's going on, guys? My name is Chris. You're watching Hot Take Hockey. If you guys are new, hit the subscribe button. We're getting close to 5K subscribers. Hopefully we can hit that by, I don't know, who knows, maybe the end of the week. Last night was a crazy night for the channel, 600 subs, but yeah, if you guys are new, hit the subscribe button. Leave a like if you do enjoy this video. Today I'm going to be looking at the four division winners and why they're out of the playoffs now. Obviously, all four wildcard teams did make it through to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and of course there'll be praises to be sung about them, obviously now and later, I'm sure. But since the first round is over, we're actually going to look at why the division winners did go out. So I'm going to break it down game by game, not go too much into depth. I don't want this video to be too long, but we are going to go over some of the sole reasons why these teams didn't manage to get through the second round like they were expected to. So obviously all four of these teams had home ice, and I'm going to go by the team who was probably least expected to win their series to the team that was most expected to win their series. So for that reason, we're going to start with the Calgary Flames. It's probably tight between them and Nashville, but I think I'm just going to go with the Flames on this one just because I wasn't always convinced with Mike Smith in goal for the Flames, and so that's why I think they're the least expected team to win their series. They played, of course, the Colorado Avalanche, in which they lost that series 4-1. So they only won one game in this series, and that's not good enough for a team who had home ice. And they would have had home ice basically through the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, through the West. So not good enough from Calgary, but we're going to get into it right now. So game one, they actually won 4-0. That was a Mike Smith shutout, and at that point it looked really good for the Flames. Actually, it couldn't have been better. Scored 4 goals. Obviously it wasn't a 4-0 game. I did do a recap on that one. What I remember was it was a tight game until the third period, and then the Avalanche took a few penalties and whatnot, and it wasn't a 4-0 game by whatever means, but Mike Smith had a really good game, and the Flames did win 4-0, and they went 2 for 5 on the power play in that game, but they did give up 4 power plays to Colorado. However, Colorado didn't score on any of them. So that was game one. Game two was a 3-2 overtime loss for the Flames. Of course, Nathan MacKinnon got that overtime winner, and they also gave up a shorthanded goal in that game, Calgary, to Matt Nieto. That was the 1-0 goal. And then they gave up a goal in the last 2.5 minutes. I believe it was JT Compher. And, so they had the lead there, and the Avalanche needed a goal. Really, you were looking at a 2-0 series lead going to Colorado. But instead, they get that goal, they tie it up, and then they win it in overtime. And so that put the series at 1-1. In game 3, they lost 6-2. The Calgary Flames were outshot 56-29. Outshot 56-29. That's crazy. And of course, Mike Smith gives up 6 goals, and they gave up 8 power plays in that game too. Obviously, the Colorado Avalanche only went 2 for 8 in that game, but giving up 8 power play chances, that's not good for momentum, and they paid the price, losing 6-2. They also went 1 for 6 on their own power plays in that game. Game 4 was a 3-2 overtime loss again. That was the Mikko Rantanen overtime winner. Again in that game, they were outshot 52-37, so they got a few more shots on goal themselves, but giving up 50 shots on goal, man. Mike Smith had a much better game in that game as well, but they gave up a 2-0 lead in that game. And really, you only have yourself to blame if you're giving up a 2-0 lead. And so, with the series 3-1, they went back to Calgary, and the Colorado Avalanche won the series, winning 5-1 in Calgary. And you're just expecting a better performance from the Flames in that game and in the series in general, and that's not what they got, really. If I'm a Flames fan, I'd be pretty angry right now. That game specifically, they out-hit the Avalanche 44-11, but, out-hitting the opponents doesn't count for anything on the scoreboard other than a stat, which is useless because at the end of the day, it's about the goals, and you can't win games without scoring goals. It's pretty simple as that. Scoring 1 goal on home ice in a must-win game, not good enough. So, just looking at some key players now. Oh, and the Flames did go 0 for 3 on the power play in that game 5 as well. Thought I'd add that in. So, Some key players for the Flames who you would have expected to step up in the playoffs this year. Sean Monahan had 2 points, Johnny Gaudreau had 1 point, and James Neal put up a goose egg. He had 0 points in that series. Guys like Lindholm were -5. I think Giordano was a -3 in the series. Just kind of an ugly series for the Flames. It'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. But that is the Flames. I'm not going to take too much longer on that. We're going to move on quickly to the next series. The Nashville Predators lost in 6 games to the Dallas Stars. This one was probably This one was the second closest series of all the division winners. But at the end of the day, the Nashville Predators go out in 6 to the Dallas Stars. Game 1 was a 3-2 overtime loss. Pretty close game. Really not too much separating these two teams, other than the fact that the Nashville Predators went 0 for 4 on the power play. Game 2 was pretty similar. However, the Predators won this time 2-1 in overtime, and they took 6 penalties actually in that game, and they were lucky not to get scored on the power play. But they went 0 for 3 on the power play again in this game, and even though they won, and even though they outshot Dallas 42-23, there was just a few signs in that game that didn't make me feel good if I was a Nashville Predators fan. Game 3, however, in Dallas, the first game in Dallas, the Nashville Predators won 3-2. They went 0 for 1 on the power play, and they gave up 4 penalties themselves. They were outshot by Dallas 42-28, but it didn't really matter because they won the game, and they had a 2-1 series lead after giving up home ice advantage by losing game 1. They won it back by winning that game in Dallas to make it 2-1 in the series. And you really thought after that the Nashville Predators would push on to win the series, probably in 5, maybe 6 games. But that wasn't the case. And in game 4, the Dallas Stars won 5-1, and this was the game for me that flipped the script on everything. Okay, they went 0 for 2 on the power play again. They gave up 6 power plays to the Dallas Stars themselves. They scored on 3 of them, and Rene gave up 4 goals on 8 shots. And I alluded to this in my bracket prediction video, which, by the way, I'm not trying to flex, but of all the guys on Hot Take Hockey, I think I got 5 out of 8 right in the first round, which is actually pretty impressive, the amount of upsets, but we'll leave bragging for another time. But yeah, it wasn't good enough from Rene. I had my doubts about him going into this series, and this game, I know he was pretty good for the rest of the series, but this game, that can't happen in the playoffs, and that's 2-2 in the series. But you're thinking, Nashville going back home, just win the game. You have a chance to win it in Dallas, but then you have Game 7 at home again if you don't win that. But Game 5, they laid a bit of an egg here. They lost 5-3. They went 0 for 1 on the power play again. Rene gave up 5 goals on 26 shots. And there it is again, Pekka Rinne. I had my doubts about him. I've gone over this already, the Winnipeg series last season. And then Game 6, a must-win game for the Nashville Predators. They lost 2-1 in overtime. They went 0 for 4 on the power play once again. They couldn't solve Ben Bishop, and in overtime, they lost. John Klingberg scored. The Dallas Stars move on. The Nashville Predators did not. And, the trade deadline, I felt personally that the Nashville Predators actually won the trade deadline well. Turns out it didn't really help them at all. If we're looking at key players, they picked up Michael Granlund at the trade deadline. He got 2 points in this series. Philip Forsberg had 2 points. Wayne Simmons didn't have a point. I know he only played 2 games, but and Victor Arvidsson, one of the bigger guys for the Nashville Predators team, 0 points in the playoffs. Not good enough. Pekka Rinne didn't have a great playoffs either. Just not a good look for the Nashville Predators. They went 0 for 15 on the power play in this series. That's just not good enough. But we're going to move on. I mean, the Nashville Predators' power play was horrible. It cost them. Special teams really cost them that series, and you got to get a new power play coach. I'm sorry. Anyways, moving on to the Washington Capitals. This one ended last night. That was that crazy stream we did. So if you want to see more streams like that, definitely subscribe. Definitely look out. Turn on those notifications. But anyways, the Washington Capitals lost in 7 games to the Carolina Hurricanes. This was probably the closest series of all of them that the division winners did lose. Game 1 was the Washington Capitals 4-2 over the Carolina Hurricanes. However, one worrying sign was the Capitals were outshot 29-18. They did go 2 for 4 on the power play, but 18 shots on goal at home in Game 1 of the playoffs? I don't know. kind of uneasy. But in game 2, they win 4-3 in overtime. Again, they outshot Carolina 33-28 this time, but they went 0 for 4 on the power play, and they gave up 5 power plays themselves. But they still won, and they were going 2-0 into Raleigh. And really, you just needed to win a game in Raleigh to secure this series, but they couldn't. Game 3, they lost 5-0, outshot 45-18, only mustering 18 shots on goal again in a playoff game. That's 2 out of 3 playoff games now to start the series that the Capitals only had 18 shots on goal. One of the worst playoff performances I have ever seen from the Washington Capitals, or at least in this recent modern era. Horrible. Absolutely horrific. So they lose that game 5-0. Mrazek, shutout, whatever. Move on, right? 2-1 loss, game 4 in Raleigh again. And this one was obviously closer, but again, still. They outshot Carolina 31-24, but they just couldn't get it done. And, you know, it was important for them to win a game in Raleigh. I knew it would be important. And series 2-2 going back to Washington. Game 5, 6-0 win. And you thought at this point, like, now they got their foot on the throat, right? 6-0 win. You're going to have all the momentum, whatever, right? They outshot Carolina, 30-28. They went 3 for 4 on the power play. Carolina goes 0 for 5 on the power play, however. Giving Carolina 5 power play chances, not ideal. But it's a huge game, a huge bounce-back game. Holtby gets a shutout, 6-0 win after they got beat a week before, not a week before, but a few days before, 5-0. You're thinking, you know, they've turned this around, right? Game 6. Just win a game in Carolina. Just win the game in Carolina. Finish the series. We don't have to worry about anything else. They lose 5-2. This one was a bit controversial, obviously, that OV goal, you know. But it is what it is, right? That's the call. You got to deal with it. They were outshot 36-25 in that game. They went 0 for 2 on the power plays. They gave up another 4 power plays to the Carolina Hurricanes. But, you know, they didn't win that game. So you go to Game 7, Washington, one of the scariest buildings in the league, in my opinion anyways. I'm a Bruins fan. The Bruins rarely win in Washington, so I know what that's all about. And they lose. They go up 2-0. They go up 3-1. And the Washington Capitals lose this game in overtime, in double overtime. And let me just break it down quickly. They were outshot 42-37. They went 0 for 3 on the power play. They had a power play chance in overtime as well after a delay of game call, and they did not look the better team in overtime whatsoever. Not in my opinion anyways. I watched that whole game, and for me, I thought the Hurricanes deserved to win. They came out, they played the better game, and they weren't expected to win, but they did. And most of the key players for Washington, you can't say they didn't really perform because most of them did. I think this series could have gone either way. It was on a knife edge, but the Carolina Hurricanes move on. Finally, the biggest shock for the whole hockey world, the Tampa Bay Lightning lose in 4 games to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and let's quickly get into it because this video is going to take too long if I go on for much longer. But Game 1, 4-3 loss. Of course, we all know this one. The Tampa Bay Lightning were up 3-0 after the first period, and somehow, someway, the Columbus Blue Jackets find a way to win this game in Tampa Bay, basically taking over in the third period. You had that shorthanded goal, you have the power play goal, and you have Tampa Bay scratching their heads after Game 1. But you think, you know what, it's all right, right? It's a 7-game series. The Tampa Bay Lightning, what do they win? 63 games all season? They'll be fine. Game 2. 5-1. They lost 5-1 at home in Game 2. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning we're talking about. And 0 for 2 on the power play. Okay, whatever. You don't have to always score on the power play. They gave up 4 power plays, though. You can't give up 4 power plays to any team in this league, unless it's the Nashville Predators. But they were scored on twice on the power play. 2 for 4 for Columbus. And Kucherov made that stupid hit and got himself suspended for Game 3. Then Game 3 comes around and they didn't have a power play. And this one is the biggest head scratcher for me because Victor Hedman didn't play. And okay, you can say he got walked around or whatever in Game 1. You can say you didn't have the best games in Game 2. But you have to play your best players. I don't care how bad or how good they played in the last game. You got to play your best players. Whether it was an injury, whatever it was. There's guys like Zach Hyman who just came out today. He was playing with basically a torn ACL. and you don't play Victor Hedman. I don't get it. John Cooper's got a lot of questions to answer, in my opinion, in the offseason. But anyways, Game 3 ends 3-1, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are staring down the barrel of, never mind a series defeat, a sweep after the best season in their franchise history. In Game 4, they give up 7 goals, obviously a few empty netters, and they lose 7-3. They go 1-for-1 on the power play. They get scored on the power play, though, again, and it just wasn't good enough. I didn't see anything from the Tampa Bay Lightning in this series after the first period of Game 1 that told me they would win this series. And I don't know how that happened. I can tell you a little bit of how that happened, though. 33 shots on goal was the most shots on goal for the Tampa Bay Lightning in any game of this series. And when you're the Tampa Bay Lightning and you have all those options in your top 6, bottom 6, their bottom 6 is better than some teams in the NHL's top 6. And I'm not even over-exaggerating here. 33 shots on goal is not acceptable as your most over 4 games. It's not, especially when you're the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was just pretty clear that this team coasted into the playoffs. They weren't playing meaningful games after February, and it showed. They were not ready for the playoffs whatsoever. They got absolutely smoked by the Columbus Blue Jackets. And take your hat off to the Columbus Blue Jackets because they were immense, but the Tampa Bay Lightning were horrible. Absolutely disgraceful. If I'm a Lightning fan, I feel cheated. I don't even know what to feel. I would just feel super empty right now. What else to say? Kucherov made that stupid hit in game 2 to get him suspended for Game 3. There's no need for that. Victor Hedman, I don't know what went on with him, but again, I alluded to that earlier. They were outscored 19-8 in this series, the Tampa Bay Lightning. 19-8. They scored 8 goals over 4 games. In the regular season, I can't remember, but they're definitely averaging over 3 goals per game. And they lay an egg like that in the playoffs. Key players: Steven Stamkos had 2 points. Nikita Kucherov had 2 points. Got himself suspended for Game 3, as I already said. Braden Point had 1 point. Victor Hedman, 0 points. Andrei Vasilevsky, don't forget about this. He wasn't good in this series either. When they needed him to make saves, he couldn't. And he had an .856 save percentage in these playoffs. A 3.83 goal against average. The Tampa Bay Lightning laid the biggest egg I have ever seen, ever. But that's basically it, guys. That's how the 4 division winners in the NHL got eliminated in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hopefully you enjoyed. It was a lot of number crunching for this video, but hopefully you do enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the playoffs. Hopefully your team's still in the playoffs. And yeah, other than that, guys, subscribe if you can. Leave a like if you did enjoy. Leave your comments in the comment section down below. I'll be interested to hear all your thoughts. And yeah, other than that, guys, have a great day. Peace.